Okay, I'm back, and we just took the cab to downtown Berlin for the first time with the bass, and that was quite a ride, just to see Berlin, downtown Berlin, for the first time. Very exciting, and just a very interesting historic place. So I arrived at the Jazz Gallery, just like Bert said. They dropped me off, got the bass out, and it was actually there'll be some pictures of the Jazz Gallery there that I'll be displaying. And it's like a basement, down in the basement. So I took the bass down there, and it was quite full of people. I must admit, I was terrified. But I worked my way back to the bandstand, and there was the amp that Bert had described to me, and I introduced myself to the drummer who was up there, a German drummer, spoke a little English, not much, and there was I believe a Czechoslovakian piano player who spoke no English, as I recall. And so we got ready to start playing, and I remember them handing me some charts, and off we went to the races. And it was terrifying yet very exciting. These guys were really wonderful. I was excited and couldn't believe that I was playing, and it really did raise my level of playing. It was very, very. My head was spinning. It was just too much to believe. But here I was playing, and the crowd was just like you hear about, playing in Europe. It was just wonderful. They were doing that synchronous clapping they do for solos and everything. It was just wonderful. Very exciting. So that went along the first set, and what happened at the end of the first set was another remarkable thing. I remember very well, and I don't think I'll ever forget it. I put the bass down, and I started to walk off the bandstand, and there was a whole line of young women, and mostly women, I think. They were asking for an American bass player autograph. So here I was, just coming off of what I thought I was going to Vietnam, and instead going through all this and ending up in Berlin, and this audition thing that I was really not an audition, and then here I am in this beautiful jazz club, and now I'm signing autographs all in the first day that I'm there. So I then I signed the autographs. What could I do? And my head was still spinning, and we came back up for the second set and started playing again. And after the I know first couple tunes, there was a black alto player that came in and unpacked his horn, and he just, even before he started to play, he just looked like somebody that I should know who it is, someone famous. I thought to myself, he just looks like he is. And then he started to play, and then I knew, I didn't know who he was, but I knew it was someone famous. And it was really remarkable, and it was Leo Wright, who I really didn't know who he was at that time, but at the end of that set, I ended up talking to him because he did speak English, and I found out who he was, and then later on I found out all more about him, and he was a really world-class jazz musician. He worked with a lot with Oliver Nelson, big-time player. You could look him up, you'll see all things about him. He's a marvelous player. Anyway, he was there, and here I was playing with these great guys, and with Leo Wright on my first night. So then we got back up for the next set, and shortly after we started playing, a trumpet player came in and unpacked his horn and got up there, and I had that same feeling again. And it turns out to be Carmel Jones, who is like a world-class trumpet flugelhorn player. Actually, his big claim to fame would have been the original version in the group that played. I can't think of the name of the group right now. Oh my goodness! But Song for My Father, those kind of things. So if you look him up too, you'll see who he is. Really a world class, and he was a wonderful. I got to know him a little bit, and he was just a remarkable, a wonderful man. And he originally is from Kansas City, by the way, which there's a little additional part to that story later on. So Carmel was playing with us, and here I am playing now with Leo Wright and Carmel Jones on my first night here. And I just thought, well, this can't get any better. But sure enough, a little while later, trombone player comes in, and it's this young black guy, Slide Hampton. I am playing my first night in Berlin with Leo Wright, Carmel Jones, and Slide Hampton. It was more than unbelievable. So anyway, we finished the night off, and it was just a wonderful thing. And I actually, they asked me to come in. It's like a jam session that was like an every Tuesday night thing. And Bert had been doing it for quite some time, and now that he was getting ready to leave, he was doing all kinds of other things. So they asked me if I would take over his Tuesday night job and just play there all the time. And of course I said yes. It was what an opportunity to get to play with all these people. So I did that, and I have a lot of pictures that you'll see. And one of the other things, I guess I'll bring this up now while we're talking about the Jazz Gallery and Bert Thompson. You'll see some of the pictures. I show pictures of Bert there, along with he's at the Jazz Gallery. I'll sit standing out in front with the bass. You'll also hear the music in the background. The music in the background was done live with a group that Bert was playing with at that time. Billy Brooks was the main drummer, and it had all these expatriates in it, and these percussionists from Cuba at the time, and I don't remember their names now, but they were remarkable, absolutely like world-class percussionists. So they formed this group called Al Baba Group, and Bert was in it, and I used to go down and hear them. They played regularly there, not every week, but they were there, and so they were kind of touring with this, playing a lot in Berlin and in the surrounding areas there. So they did an album, a live album at the Jazz Gallery, and that's what you're hearing in the background. and there's also some pictures from the cover of that album, and you can see me sitting at the edge of the bandstand in these cover pictures. And the reason I'm mentioning that now, because later on, well, I'm not sure if I'll ever get to this part of the story. Maybe I'll tell it now, because let's skip ahead just for a minute, way into the future. After I had been out of the army, came back home and got married to Jean, my wife Jean. After talking together for a couple of years, she used to always talk about this saxophone player named Chu Nero, and so I had heard of, mostly from her, but from other people also, how wonderful Chu Nero was. And so I was, hopefully someday I would get to hear him or meet him. But one day we were sitting in our first apartment, and the phone rang, and I remember Jean picked it up, and I heard her say, I think I was upstairs, and I heard her say, "Chu," and she starts talking, and I kind of figured out that she was talking to this Chu Nero. So they talked for a long time, and then eventually she handed me the phone, and I, introduced each other to my, we talked, and he sounded really, really nice, and I really was looking forward to meeting him. But then he told me that he was working with a bass player up in Niagara Falls, and they were having some problems. So he said he had heard about me, and that I had come back from the service and I was home, and he wondered if I could come and help him out. So long story short, I'll get to the point. I did, and it was like musical heaven at first glance. It was like just magic, and that's when Chu Nero and I started to work together. And then we it was shortly after that we started to do a little rehearsing. We were trying to get material together for our trio, and so I used to go over to his house up in Niagara Falls, and I started telling him these army stories. Actually, I don't remember why, but it's for some reason, and I thought, oh, I got this album that just got me my picture in. So it's like a confirmation of my stories, kind of. So I brought the album with me, and I was showing him, and I said, "Chu, look at them," and I showed him the picture, which I think you'll see there. And I said, "That's me. This is at the Jazz Gallery in Berlin." I said, "Look, that's me sitting on the side of the bandstand." And I said, "That's my roommate Bert playing bass." And he said, "Oh, no. That's my best friend, Bert. That's my best friend, Bert." I said, No, Chu. That's my roommate, Bert, from Berlin." He said, "No, that's my best friend, Bert Thompson." And then I realized, I had never really discussed, Bert was like, even though I ended up being his roommate for a couple months, eventually there, we never really talked about home or about any of that stuff. He was too busy. He wasn't around that much. He was busy doing his other things that he was doing. So I never really made a connection. But he was from Niagara Falls. I knew that. He had told me that, but I never questioned him on it. So turns out that he was Chu Nero's best friend. They went to school together. He and Bobby Jones, and Bobby Jones was in the same class with them. So here we had that connection that I never knew about again. So it was just another magical thing. So now I'll get back to my story now. That's just a little segue that I thought I'd throw in there just as another amazing coincidence. So after I finished that night, I headed back home, took the cab back to the barracks. Let's call it the barracks, or what do you want to call it? The band room, I guess, the band building. Okay. I started, the guy dropped me off at the street, and I started to walk, and now of course it's pitch black, and I'm carrying the bass, and I'm walking through this wooded area going up to the building, and I started to get this very creepy feeling like something was following me or something behind me. So I remember, sort of setting the bass down for a second and turning around, looking. But there was nothing. I didn't see anything or anything. But it was a very creepy feeling, and I just kept on getting creepier as I got closer to the building. And I went into the giant front doors and went in the building. And, signed in. Yeah, there was a little security post, and I had to sign in. And I proceeded walking down the long hospital hall as I described earlier. And now it was very dimly lit, just very dim lights on. And as I'm walking, again, I feel this horrible, creepy feeling like something's walking behind me. I know something's behind me. So I'd stop, look back there, nothing. So it got to the point where, I got up the stairs, and then, of course, I had this big bass I was carrying, and it wasn't even mine, so I wasn't going to run with it. But I was moving as quick as I possibly could because it was such a creepy feeling. So I get to that room across the hall from Bert's room down a little bit, and I, bring the bass in the room and I set it in there. I didn't know if Bert was there. I didn't want to wake anybody up. This was now getting a little late. And then I proceeded to, hop in bed and try to get some sleep because it was going to be my first day in Berlin, full day, actually doing stuff. So I went to bed and fell asleep at first. And I remember it was a little. This was fall. It was fall time, so it was it was still a little warm, and so I had the windows open a little bit. I remember because during the night, then it got kind of really. Once again, this room was giving me the creeps for some reason. I didn't know the reason yet, and I'll get to that soon. But once again, I had. I guess I call them nightmares. Kept on waking up, very uncomfortable, very, I don't know what, I can't describe it, but it was very creepy feeling. And when I woke up in the morning, my papers that I had, shot records, that kind of stuff, I didn't have much, but there was just a few important papers, army papers that I needed. They were sitting on a what do you call that thing to put your stuff in, like a case. I can't think of the name of it now. It'll come to me later, but it was just sitting on top of that, and nowhere near the window, by the way, I might add. I'll explain that in a little while. But they were gone. All my papers are gone. I looked. There was nothing to tear apart because I didn't have anything with me, basically. They were gone. So I didn't know what happened. I could not make any sense of it whatsoever. But finally, they came and got me and said, "Okay, gotta get dressed because we're going on a little. It wasn't a long trip, just a little. We're playing some kind of a football, like playing for a football game or something. I don't remember exactly what it was, but we had to go play with the band, like the marching band kind of thing." So they took me downstairs. I got the right uniform to put on. I had on, so they got me set up with all that stuff. And we were going to go in the afternoon, so the morning I had to get all prepared for this. And that's where I had my first sort of encounter with the military guys, the real military guys, and the warrant officer guy was in charge. I met him, and he's telling me, oh, okay, now you play the bass, that's great. When Bert, we'll be definitely using you on bass, but I see that you also play the trumpet. So I guess that means that you could play tuba, because we need a tuba player. So his reasoning was that I play bass, I play trumpet, so I certainly can play tuba. So at this point, I'm not arguing with anybody. So I said, "Oh, I've never played tuba, but if you want me to try, I will." And so he said, "Good, we'll do that." And because we're really short on tuba. I think we only have one tuba player now, and we could use another one. I said, actually Bert played one sometimes too. So I said, okay. And so they got me a tuba, sousaphone technically, because we were going to be marching. And so I took that and my uniform, and then we, whatever we did else, I think we did a couple other little things, and then the next thing was time to get on the bus. And so now you keep in mind, I haven't really met hardly anybody yet, except for Bert and briefly the couple guys that were in his room at first. So I get on the bus, a whole big army bus with all these guys, and we're sitting outside the band room, or not band room, but the band building, in sort of in the parking lot out there. And next thing I know, it's kind of quiet on there, and nobody's talking, so I kept quiet. Next thing I know, these guys start rocking the bus. So this is a big bus, like when you take on a bus to downtown, that kind of a big bus. And they've actually got this thing going up on two wheels, off back and forth, like they're gonna flip the bus over. I didn't know what was going on. I was again terrified. I said, "What have I gotten myself into? What's going on?" So finally, the military guy, the older military guys, the ones that aren't the draftees, starts, getting a little angry, I guess was the word, and they started hollering and making them stop. So finally things stopped, and they started to drive, and we headed out to this. At this point I don't even remember where it was, because I wasn't familiar with anything at that point. But we drove for about a half hour or so, and we got to this place where we got out and played for a little while. And this is where I had my first experience playing the tuba. So I said that I met the other tuba player, the real tuba player. His name was what was his first name? Martinez. His last name was Martinez, so everybody called him Martinez. Fernando Martinez, believe it or not. And he was really a very nice guy, and so he helped me out, sort of gave me the lowdown on how to do it. And he said, don't worry about it, just catch some of the notes if you can, and just follow me. So it was good. I was able to play a couple notes, and I guess the evaluation was somewhat, I think, faulty, but at least it was somewhat true. I actually was able to play a little bit of tuba. So we did that and got back in the thing, and we drove back home. And then on the way home, I started to meet a few more of the guys, and at least I got to meet some of them, and we went back into the barracks, and then proceeded from there. Now, at this point, I don't know if it was on the way home or maybe when we got back to the band building, but I had met a few of them, so I started to hang around with them and talk with them and stuff. And they asked me what room I was in, and I told them what room I was in, and they said, "Oh, you've got to get out of that room as soon as possible." And I said, "Well, why is that?" And they said, because that room next door to that room which is the last room on that side of the building, at the end of the building. That room there is the one that Hitler did the experiments on the children. And he said it's terribly haunted and very, very bad. And the room that you're in is next to that, and it's also affected by it. And that's why no one's in there. if you notice. I said, oh, well, maybe that explains some of the feelings I'm getting from this. I didn't have any explanation for this, and it was quite disturbing to hear. So apparently this hospital, this band building, used to be Hitler's hospital, the one that they did the experiments on the kids in. So that was very disturbing. So the next day or so, talking to everyone, and I eventually, and it wasn't very long, maybe a day or two, I found out that there was a vibist, a percussionist, but he played vibes also, and a real good jazz player. His name was Bob Howell, and he had an opening in his room. I guess his former roommate, had just left the army, so he had an opening in the room. So I asked him if I could move in there with him, and he welcomed me, and it was very nice. So Bob was wonderful. I've got some pictures of Bob that I'm sure you'll be seeing right along. I'll try to get them at the same time as what I'm talking about. And Bob was great. He was a beautiful vibe player and a very nice drummer, and he was just a really sweet guy. And I say was because unfortunately he just passed away in a terrible accident a few months ago, which was very sad to hear. Just as a sideline about Bob Howell, he left the army a few months after I met him. He wasn't there very long when I was there, but he never left. He stayed in Berlin, and he fell in love with a beautiful young lady in Berlin, and he lived there. He ended up staying there permanently, and I sort of kept not directly in contact with him, but a little in contact with him. I just found out this news that he had an accident and passed away. So that was kind of sad to hear. But then after that, I ended up moving in with Bert, because his room. The timing of it was when Bert was Bert's roommate left. I sort of asked Bert if I could move in with him, and I did. So I was in Bert's room with him, but Bert was never there. Just on my sideline, he was, like I said, he was getting ready to get out of the army, and he was playing all over the place. He was really in demand. So he wasn't there all that much, and even during the day, he wasn't there that much. So that's why I ended up there, and it was good. And then, so I'll just continue on with a little bit more about this haunting business, because there was a time, I'm trying to think if I should wait for this part of the story. I'll go and tell you now. So the first after we were there, after I was there, a few weeks. I think it was pretty soon. I remember, Bert had told me that he would take me down and show me where he got that beautiful bass that he had. And I then went down with him. He took me down, introduced me to this the beautiful shop down there. The beautiful, bass. Well, it wasn't just for basses. A beautiful string shop. And of course, my mind is blank right now. I can't think of the name of it, but it's kind of not relevant. Anyway, it was the place, the string shop at the time in Berlin. They had 4 generations of the guys who were, that worked on the basses. There was the grandfather, the father, and 2 sons, I believe. And they're the ones that did the work on the basses. So he took me down there, and I, talked to them, and they knew, because I was playing jazz, and Bert introduced me, and they knew what I wanted. they knew that I wanted and by the way, I found out that Ray Brown used to buy his basses at the shop, so that really sold me immediately as soon as I found that out. And so they knew what I wanted. They knew what kind of bass I was looking for. So they told me that they didn't have any that the kind of bass that I'm looking for right now. They said, but they do get them often. So they said, we have some other basses that are really nice, but not the kind that you're looking for. We know what you want. So they said, okay, but they said, what do you have? So they showed me, and they had, and it was beautiful. So I ended up buying this one bass that was quite nice, but it didn't, like they said, it didn't have that growl like that a jazz bass is, that you desire in a jazz bass. So, but I bought it. And then with the idea, I told them, when you do find this bass that you think is right for me, I'll trade that one in. And they said, okay, that sounds like a great idea. So I ended up taking that bass, and so I had it, and I was using it mostly to practice with, because I at that time, Bert was still playing bass in the band, and we were also playing electric bass too. So a lot of the stuff, especially in the I'm trying to think if it was mostly electric bass that we were playing in the band when we would do things, most things. On occasion there'd be some special little combos that we would use string bass. And speaking of that, the army band itself had this beautiful German bass, a Pullman. It was a wonderful bass. I love that bass. I wish I could have. It was brand new, and it was just a beautiful instrument. So it was actually far superior to the one that I bought. So the one that I bought, the first one I bought. So I would play that one when we would need a string bass, and I would practice with my other one. So I got some. I think I have some pictures of that bass that should be in the slides there. So one day, I think Bert was there, and he was. I don't know whether he had a couple of friends in the room, something, and I wanted to go. I was practicing something, so I decided. I said to myself. That room down at the end. Now I had not, I had once again, over the period of weeks and stuff, I had heard stories, so many stories, ghost stories. I don't know if it's true or not. But, I said, I'm gonna go down in that room, and because it's totally empty, and no one's using it, and no one's around. I'm gonna go practice in that room. So I took my music stand, put it in there, carried the bass down, turned the lights on, and I think I don't know. I don't remember. No, I didn't close the door. I just left the door open because there was no one around. The hall was empty. There was nobody around. So I started playing, practicing a little bit, and suddenly the lights go off. And I turned around and I immediately thought, somebody's screwing with me. Somebody was out there and just reached in and shut the light off. It was a switch on the wall kind of thing. So I put the bass down, went out to the hall, looked way down that long hospital hall. Not a soul. I said, well, that's interesting. So I switched the light back on, went back, played again, and 30, 40 seconds later, the light goes off again. So I turn around again and I look down the hall. Nothing. So I went back one more time, turned the light back on. And I started playing again. And this time I turned around, so I was facing the doorway, and started playing, and the light goes off, and I just grabbed my bass and exited the room, came back and got the music stand, and never went back in there again. Oh boy, that was really something. So I never, obviously, I have no explanation for that. So that's what happened in my first couple days in Berlin, and there are many other things that are coming up now that I'll tell you about Berlin, and I've got lots of things to tell you. So I'll stop here. We've got about looks like about 35 minutes or so that we're talking here. So I'll just finish up here, and I will see you back for more on Berlin. What will be coming up next is pretty soon. I'm going to tell you about my effort to take classical lessons in Berlin. Berlin had 9 full-time professional philharmonics orchestras. Unbelievable. While I was there, and plus a whole boatload of like not professional, but very good orchestras. So I decided that this is silly. I'm here after I've been there for a few months. I said I've got to take lessons. So I'll continue on with that story when I come back shortly. Bye.
Majola, Jolly Jam.